Olá, eu sou a Claudia Vassao, uma das idealizadoras desse evento. Estou super feliz porque é a primeira vez que nós estamos fazendo esse diálogo sobre terapias com animais e para animais e outras coisas que fazem parte dessa nossa relação, né? Eu falo relação gente e bicho, bicho e gente, né? E por isso desse debate, porque é uma área que vem emergindo muito aqui no Brasil. Eu acho extremamente importante que as pessoas conheçam que existe também esse trabalho. Estou bem feliz de ter o Ruud aqui na nossa abertura. É uma alegria muito grande começar esse evento, os nossos diálogos com Ruud Knaapen, porque ele foi o meu primeiro professor. Então, muito bem-vindo, Ruud, e quero que você conte um pouco para nós sobre a sua experiência.
You're very welcome, and thank you for inviting me for this interview. I feel very honored.
Naquela época, você chamava o seu trabalho de coaching sistêmico com cavalos. Eu gostaria que você começasse falando sobre o seu novo trabalho. Eu sei que não é novo, mas é um pouco diferente daquilo que eu aprendi aqui no Brasil em 2012.
I'd like you to start talking about your new work. I know that it's not really new, but it's a little bit different from what I've learned with you here in Brazil in 2012.
Yeah, it's indeed not new because it was all the time already there. It's more that we discover in time, probably we see more the work as it already was. So we think we develop things, but I don't think we develop things. I just think that we learn to see more. And that we are more open to see what is already presented to us. So in the beginning, I worked very on the individual basis. I worked more on a therapeutic concept of defense mechanisms. In the beginning, I saw the horse as an animal which responded mostly to the part that we don't want to feel or don't want to see. So the horse for me was an indicator where the client didn't want to look, or it was too painful to look. But it was on one situation in a kind of therapeutic concept, where the center of this concept was that we have defense mechanisms, and when the defense mechanisms are on, we are not complete anymore. A part of us is not present. And the horse responded to this. The horse saw two things. He saw the person who kept away a part of his feelings, or a part of his past, or a part of his attitude. And there was this part which was excluded. So the horse saw two persons. And because of the predictability in a herd, is predictability one of the most important things, that you are predictable for the horse. The predictability was in danger. So the horse was almost drawn to the part which was excluded. So the horse responded more to the part which was excluded than to the part the person presented. That was the first step 20 years ago almost. And maybe I can show a picture which shows that development, and then I can point in a picture about this part in this development, in this process. If you want, I could share a picture with you.
Okay.
Do you think that would be helpful? Yeah?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I put on share screen. Okay, I cannot use my mouse, but the part which I told you is, you see this upper skill. It's the me skill. I call it me consciousness. It's a consciousness of the person. It's this part. It's the upper part, and it has the words ik, consciousness, ik between. It's not a hurt, but it's me as a person. It's the consciousness of the single person. That was the beginning of this work. I just worked with one person, one herd, and the concept was that the horse was telling us something about the part of the person which was excluded, in simple words. Then the systemic work in Holland came in. The first book of Hellinger arrived in Holland. It was in 1997, 98, 2000, around that time. And I was working with the horses, and I read the book of Bert Hellinger, the hidden connections in the family. And then my impression was that when a person steps into the space with the horses, it's not a person, but he represents his whole family, everything which happened in his life, everything in his herd, in his human herd. It comes with him when he steps into this place. And there I called it systemic work with horses. You could see this second skill, and in Dutch it stands kudde consciousness. It's the consciousness of the herd. You could compare that with collective consciousness of Bert Hellinger. It's more an instinctive consciousness of the group or the system as a whole. So at that time I also put representatives in them because I was a constellator and I was used to do constellation work. So I set up constellation with horses. I did this too because I didn't know any better, and I didn't really wanted to discover this work. So I just experimented with representatives with the horses together. So there was nothing wrong with this. It was just belonging to this phase in this work. And what I discovered at that moment is when I brought in representatives, the intensity in the session lowered. Like I broke the field. Like I tried to, like I as a facilitator was creating something while the horse was pointing to something else, which I just could not understand. But what I did discover then, and that was important for me, that when the we was recognized in the I, so the we, the herd consciousness was recognized in the person and the herd fell together. So I recognized the nos in the person. I'm no longer a person, I dissolve in the herd. So I fall together, the I and the we, they fall together. And when the I and the we fall together, there is no system pressure anymore. Then I became the herd. So everything which happens in the herd happens in me. And that was an important insight that I called one of the principles of the herd is the herd is already carrying. The herd carries, always. Even if you don't want it, the herd is already carrying because you are the herd. There's no difference. When a horse has to leave a vow behind, a little horse. When a horse or the herd needs to leave a vow behind, then the vow dies. But not only the vow, there's something dying in the whole group. There are no others. We think that there are others, that there is a we and a you and a me, but there are no others. And when you see that, then you can be carried by the hurt, then you can fall back. Ah, I am already the hurt. I am already complete. So then every duality has gone there. Is this clear?
Yeah. Yeah.
Please ask questions till we have it clear. It's very important to have this clear because it's such for our brains, it's so difficult to understand, but in our soul we can feel it. So that has an important implication. This is an important distinguishment from the systemic thoughts, because in the systemic rituals you have the give back ritual. I carry this load for you, and mom, now I give it back to you. And mom says to me, okay, thank you for carrying this for me, but I'm your mom. I'm great, you're small, I will carry this for you. So the child then gives back what he carried for the mom. That's what we do in systemic work. But in this way of thinking of the hurt, it's not possible, because the hurt is already carrying you, including the child's. So by giving it back, giving something back is secretly saying no to the hurt. I'm saying to the hurt, I don't want this, I give it back to you. It's not mine. By that way, you're saying, I don't belong to the hurt. And that was for systemic people, they really got confused there. They said, yeah, but the child is carrying and you have to give it back. Say no, if you give something back, it's an illusion. You are already carrying, you are already your mom, your dad, your grandpa, your traumas, everything you are already. There is nothing to give back. Just agree with everything which was given to you. Even you're crawling over the floor from pain, when you consent to it, you immediately stay in tune with life force itself. And that's what I mean by letting yourself be eaten by life force. It's not literally, but in a way, it's also literally. Let you give over to this life force. Don't give it back. And that's what the horse teaches. That is what the horse teaches. And the concept makes that we think we are an individual, we are a person, so we give it back to mom, but there is no difference. There was a client here who said, my grandfather hanging himself, and now I have a trauma. I said, okay, let's turn it around. Maybe he hanged himself to save you. So please say thank you. Look at him and say thank you to him instead of turn it around. Can you see? There's an other way of, it's a totally other way of thinking. Mm-hmm. The blue lines is the forza da vida. It goes through the hurt, it goes to the me, it goes to every object we see. And it has no direction, it has no fate, it has no, in systemic work, Hellinger called it Geist. But he, and I don't want to correct Hellinger, because I own him a lot. Hellinger is for me a source, and I really bow for Hellinger. But I have a different opinion about this life force, which he called Geist. Because in systemic work, they use Geist as a force which is beyond good and bad, and which create and is destructive also. And they say life force has a direction, has a meaning. There is no meaning. A meaning is a concept of us as people, like in former times we looked up at the sky and we said, oh, this is God, and God did this, and God will help us. It's the same, but it's we now call it Geist, but it's like we try to put Geist in front of our car. It's like with Corona. It's like with Corona we say, Corona has a meaning. Corona causes that we all come together. But by interpreting this big force, which we cannot understand, and by interpreting it, making a concept of it, we just say in our hearts, we are bigger than you. We are bigger than Corona. We don't know what Corona brings us. We really don't know. You only can bow for it. And so Geist, as a life force, is one part of the story. And I will tell later on what's the other part. Because life force is a force which is there. And Hellinger is totally right in this. But life force is not something where we can cooperate with, or what is an object we can influence, or what we can work together with. Then we make ourselves huge as a human being. And the horses invite us to give up that position where we are separate from reality. We have us and we have nature. That's not true. We are part of it. Sorry. Oh man, this is difficult and exciting to share with you. Really. Yeah. I try to be as honest as possible.
Ouvindo você falar sobre essa sua caminhada, esse processo de você sair de um estilo de trabalho e chegar a outro, me faz pensar no quantas coisas, quantos conceitos que você precisou ir soltando no meio dessa caminhada.
Hearing you talk about this process, from one way of seeing things to where you are now, it makes me think about how many concepts you had to let go to arrive where you are now.
Eu imagino quantas coisas os cavalos foram mostrando, ensinando para você, e o quanto você se colocou disponível, mesmo tendo, como a própria constelação de Bert Hellinger, algo tão consistente, mesmo assim você se abrindo para algo novo e deixando esses conceitos se desprenderem, se soltarem, talvez.
So I can imagine how much the horses showed you, and in which way you had to put yourself available to learn and to accept these new concepts and let go the old ones.
Yeah. This is the essence of love: to give up every. How do you say in Dutch is belang? How do you say in English belang? Ja, belang is belang. Van mensen hebben belangen. Ik heb een agenda, belang.
It's not desire, it's...
Not desire. In politics, it's only this. And in business life, it's only I'm kind to you because I need something from you.
No, it's not interest.
Interest comes close to it, I think. But we can feel what it is. I have interest in this. You know, it's I need something from you. Yeah, like you're doing me a favor, or I need something. It's not free because I still are connected to my interest. And love is always free. And when you work with the horses, you have to give up every interest. Every interest. You have to. So even a concept of systemic work has an interest, because reality has to fit into that concept. So, or PRE, it's another form of therapy, of NLP. It's also every concept wants to exist. And the horses invite you to let all of this fall out of your hand. And the invitation is to look to their eyes and follow their invitation for probably an intervention, which will help you, which will help the client to let the person fall together with his hurt. So there are two steps. the horse can help you to recognize the we in the person, the we in the I. That's the first step. The second step is to recognize life force itself in every object which you are confronted in, every event, everything which happens in life, to let yourself be taken by life force, that life force takes over instead of the concept. And that is what the horses do. They invite you to give over to this force which drives the herd. We call it vitality. I just find a temporary word for it. I call it vitality, force of vitality into the herd. If there is if you are past the vitality in your life, by example, you have a relation and the relationship it's over and you go on, then you are passing vitality. If you stay in a job too long, you're passing vitality. Then there's no more vitality in this relationship. And by going on with it, you lose the potential of life. And then the horse withdraws. The horse will stop because it's dangerous for them. So the horse helps you in ending things and to see where things end. And the horses showed me that this concept of systemic constellation with horses ended. So I just gave it up. I had to, the horses invited me to give up every concept just to see what they were pointing at all the time.
E com tudo isso, o que eu aqui estou pensando, né? Que você desenvolveu algo muito maior que isso. Agora nós não estamos mais falando simplesmente do cavalo e das pessoas numa sessão. Nós estamos falando de algo muito maior. Você nos levou para algo muito maior.
So now hearing you, I'm thinking here that you took us to something much bigger. We are not talking anymore just about people and horses in a session, but you took us to something much bigger than this.
That's right. That's really true. If you passing the point of concept and connected to that, passing the point of interest, then you fall into a space. The horses invite you to fall into a space where there is no interest, and there's the deepest form of love or peace or whatever in yourself, and as following by that also in your relation with the world. We call this the harmonization principle. It's a principle which I showed you in the picture with water, which is totally quiet, and where is a client brought in who is in a duality, and then the water starts to like waves, and the horses will bring back that point where there is no interest, where there is, I call it the silent point, or I call it the point where nothing wants to move. You can see it when the horses are in that state. They're totally in a space. I call it dissolving space, because it's more, they're not connected to objects anymore. They're more connected with it's hard to describe this in words, like a holding space, or where there's a space where everything where nothing has begun yet, where there are no high, low, nor categories, where there are no concepts, there are no interests there. The horses just point to that silent space, and that's marvelous. And you see people just before they die, they sometimes see this point. It's like a point zero. It's like it's differentless there. There are no differences there. It's differentless. It's you could call it peace. or harmony, or and that's a moment. Another word for it, I call it the we state in my book. The we state is where the I is dissolved. The person is totally dissolved. There is no interest more. You're still alive, but you're fully falling together with life force itself. And then it doesn't matter if there is pain or if there is happiness. It's differentless there. It's in tune, totally in tune with reality itself. You fall together with reality itself. It's the deepest gift life can give to you. It puts me on my knees. For that, I go on my knees, not for a God or another concept, because God, Christianity, Muslims, everything, it's a concept. When there are differences, it's still a concept. It can be something else than a concept. And horses point to the differentless space. It's beautiful. And it's really touching. So you have to give up yourself to let yourself be taken over by this. It is, you have to have the intelligence to see what is a concept and what is not. There you need your intelligence, but you need your heart to give yourself over. It's both. And it's not blind. It's not blind, oh, you can have me. No, it's you keep clear and you give yourself over to it. It's not blind. Like we see sometimes in religion, that's a big love, but it's blind. I kill you because my religion is better than you. There is still this fight. My religion is bigger. But here is no conflict anymore. Horses only have those conflicts, they're very short, just to bring back that harmony state. They don't hit you because they want to kill you or want to, they're angry about you took their food an hour ago. That's a concept, that's a story we made up in ourselves. They just respond immediately. And when you work with horses, the facilitator follows the horses by responding immediately. So when in the first second of a session a horse gives a response, you follow immediately without understanding. You're not saying, okay, tell me more about your problem. Okay, we wait. Or no, you work immediately when you see the contact between the field of the client and the field of the herd. And the first response to it, you follow it, even without understanding. So you have to give up yourself in knowing. There's nothing to know. It's very deep when you allow that there is nothing to know. Everything starts now. We see each other now for the first time. This is what we see now when we look, when we have contact now, even through Zoom, is only right now here. That's a wonder. And everything we talked about minutes ago, it's gone. It's just this is the part of the life force which gives us the possibility to know, to experience this life force itself. So you have life force itself and the silent part which is signaling this life force. You know, you can say, okay, I feel energy, but what is seeing this energy? Who is seeing this energy which we feel? So you have life force and something which sees this life force. And that's that silent space. We can only see movement because something else is totally silent. And the horses point to this silent point. And you can call it peace or harmony, but that's all temporary words to point to something which we cannot describe. I'm sorry for this.
No problem. Worthwhile, totally worth it.
Sorry, one thing, that doesn't mean that I don't do interventions what has to do with someone's family or what else. If I have younger people here, it can be very helpful to see what happened in your family. It's not that part doesn't do anything more, but that part is only the gate to which it helps them to make that following step to that harmony part. So it's, you go through those skills which were in the figure. You go You fall through it. You fall. There's a moment that you see, these are stories, it's not true. Wow. Now in contact with the horse, I see that I'm already in the middle of this life force. And I let this trauma, or whatever it was, I can't find it anymore. It's very interesting when they're at that point and I ask them, where are your tears? They were an hour ago, you were crying your head off. Where are your tears? Ruud, I don't, it's like it's taken over by something else. Okay, thank you. Then you're at that point. Or I ask them, where's your trauma now? Yes, where's my trauma now? I wonder where it is. I said, yes, of course. Stay at this spot. Also, what comes up to me is giving up the hidden importance as a facilitator. By giving this up, this is also a hidden belang, a hidden interest. By giving that up, there becomes space for let yourself be led by the force of the herd. It's really, and by giving this up, also you make it for the client also possible to give up his issue or his trauma or his thing where he's clinging to. Clinging to something means you cannot have me. I stick with this. I won't give myself over to life force. I cling to my system. I cling to my fear. I cling to my power of my symptoms. And it's a power, of course, not a power which has to do with good or bad, but it's important to see that there is still something which is not willing to say yes to this life force, to this mystery or whatever. Even giving it a word is already way too far.
Você já alcançou um nível de consciência desse todo, disso que é uma consciência maior. Você e outras pessoas conseguem fazer isso. Porém, ainda os cavalos estão permeando essas sessões de terapia. Talvez um dia, quando o maior número de seres humanos tiverem essa consciência, nós vamos poder liberar os cavalos também das nossas questões, inclusive desse suporte terapêutico que eles estão fazendo.
You've already reached a certain level of consciousness, you and some other people too. Maybe at a certain moment in the future, a lot of people will have reached this level of consciousness, and then we might not need the horses anymore, or let the horses free of this work they are doing now for us.
Wow, that's Claudia, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful picture. Because then you're acknowledging that there was something to be dissolved there in the relationship between man and horses, but maybe also men and other animals, which I don't know. That I work with horses is a coincidence. Maybe there are other gates. I think there are many gates to become at this point. And I also think that all people have immediately access to this point, but we're looking over it. There's not something to do or to act or to work hard for it. It has more to do by, hey, now I see it. Oh, wow. And that's immediate. That's immediate. And the invitation is for everyone. You don't have to be smart or rich or poor. There's no differentiation there. And I really think when we see what the horse is pointing at, then it's not needed anymore. Then we and the horses fall together in something common. In the part in which we totally equal. It's the same consciousness. The consciousness on the lower level, it's the same consciousness. which we also are already in. And the horses help us to see this, that it could also be another animal, but I just met the horses. I don't know why, that's a mystery to me, but it's probably also possible with birds or with some, I don't know. That's not my expertise, but it's beautiful what you say, Claudia, that there is a certain point of dissolvement, and I call this dissolvement. Then there's nothing more to solve. It's seen, it's acknowledged, and then when something is acknowledged, it's free. Beautiful. And you can also meet this with other humans. You can also, sometimes you have a relationship with someone. I think this is also be seen in relationships between people, that there are struggles which want to dissolve. The biggest desire of a struggle or a desire or a trauma is to dissolve. That's what I believe. That's the deepest love there is, to dissolve.
Nós falamos de algo no futuro, mas no presente a nossa realidade é bem diferente.
We were talking about the future, but our reality now in the present is very different.
E agora eu quero falar um pouco sobre os terapeutas.
And now I'd like to talk a little bit about the therapists.
Okay.
E como você falou de Bert Hellinger, ele teve uma trajetória interessante, porque num determinado momento ele se viu obrigado a se abrir a algo e dar um novo passo.
We talked about Bert Hellinger, and he had a very interesting path, because at a certain moment he was obliged to open himself to something new.
Yeah.
E quando eu penso em pessoas com a idade do Bert Hellinger, e ele como um religioso, eu imagino quão difícil foi para ele se abrir para isso novo.
And when I think about people with in the same age range as Bert Hellinger, and also him being a religious person, I can imagine how difficult it must have been to open himself to something new.
Nós, como terapeutas e como consteladores, ainda estamos pensando ou processando as coisas naquele formato que o Hellinger fazia suas constelações antes dele mesmo ter tido seu insight.
So we as therapists and constellators, we are still processing and formatting our way of working, sometimes in the same way that Bert used to work before he had his insights.
E agora, ouvindo você, eu diria que aquele insight que o Hellinger teve seria um caminho do meio.
And now, hearing you speaking, I imagine, I think that the insight that Hellinger had could be called as a path in between.
Ele talvez não tenha tido tempo de dar o próximo passo.
Maybe he didn't have time to take the next step.
E a minha pergunta,
my question is,
como nós podemos aprender, nós terapeutas, a soltar o controle, o desejo de identificar quais são as dinâmicas que os clientes têm, de saber qual é a frase que vai ajudar o cliente, como nós podemos liberar tudo isso e simplesmente nos entregar a algo maior.
So my question is, how can we as therapists learn how to lose control, not wanting to know what is the next step, what is the question that we have to ask, to not to want to know what the client wishes, what's his desire for this session.
E qual é a dinâmica por trás do problema dele.
And what is the dynamic behind his problem, behind his his question.
It-
How can we learn to simply
yeah.
let things follow?
Yeah. First thing which comes up, and I respond now as a horse directly, is being a beginner all the time. Allowing yourself to be a beginner all the time. Like I'm seeing everything for the first time right now. By that, I give up everything which I think I know. And by allowing myself to being a beginner, I allow also that something else takes over. I've given myself over, not to the knowledge I have or the things I know as a person, but I give myself over to that what is served to me or is shown to me right now. And with the horses, that is easy because they're so impressive. This I cannot neglect them. So in working with horses, it's not for me not so hard to stay a beginner all the time because they are beginners all the time. They show me how it is to be a beginner. Everything is new for them every split second. If you are uh, recognize this, acknowledge this, then you give up your form, your shape, your castle, your shape. I am Ruud. I'm a therapist. I know something about horses, or I am Jow, and I'm very experienced. The more experienced you are, the more you you could probably hear that invitation to let that all go and to look again. And I sometimes people who are right new in this field, and that for them it's much easier to step into this newness than that older therapist. Like I'm also an older one. You know, my son is so much faster than me in this field. I follow him. I look at him and think, yeah, I didn't see this because I was still connected with my old theories, and so it's also, and that's not a problem. Don't make an issue of it, but be open for that invitation that you are a beginner every split second. That's for me very important. Being a beginner all the time, just like the horses. And Hellinger was in the begin time. I loved his begin time because you could see he didn't have any concept there. And by that, he was free to respond immediately. He worked like a horse in his beginning time. I still look videos of him, of his begin time, because he was totally free. And he had the courage to give up his own concepts, to shoot them, to put a knife to his own concepts. Then you have a lot of courage and a lot of love for reality. If you can do this, kill your concepts. It's like killing your own child. It's almost like a biblical, like a mythological thing. You know, but he did it. He also killed his own concepts in a way, and that's, I think, then you stay open for what is shown to us every split second.
Eu tenho uma última pergunta. I have a last question.
Okay.
Algumas pessoas têm vontade de aprender a trabalhar com os cavalos. Com a minha experiência, eu percebo que é mais fácil para quem não vem do campo das constelações familiares. Eu queria saber a sua opinião. Se qualquer pessoa pode aprender a utilizar os cavalos no seu trabalho.
Some people are willing to learn how to work with horses. And I have the impression that it might be easier for people who do not come from family constellation, who do not have this background. And I'd like to know your opinion about it.
I got also very good experiences with people with with that background. It's more in the person if he's willing up to give whatever direction he's coming from. If he allows to be open in his relation to what the horses is shown, I think that's the most important thing. If you can be open, then your experience with constellations can be very helpful. But what is, of course, is what I found difficult is that I learned with constellation that to set up representants, to use a technique, and I still use it. And what I found difficult is that I, in a certain kind of way, in a constellation, I still feel more possibilities to influence or to do things or to construct or to, even if I'm in a total mood of not knowing, because I work with people who talk and they say things and representatives feel things and they move. So we have a lot of influences, even if I have my leadership there as a facilitator. But with the horses, I have to give up everything. And that's when I have to work with horses, I'm honest with you. When I have to work with horses in a session, those are the only sessions that I cannot sleep in the night before because I'm so scared of giving up all the control. Every session, I'm scared to death to give up my control. So if someone has a struggle in giving up control in a session, it's me. But the moment I'm with the horses, that falls away. When I see them and I see the client, then I forget everything I know. And I just hear them. I just hear them. Look here. And that's really personal what I say. But I really, when I do a constellation, I'm not lying awake. I know, okay, I can do this. I have my competences. I know how it works, and I can always bring it to a good end, and a good end for the client, or that something important comes up in a way. I'm honest with this, and but deep in my heart, even if I do a constellation and I think, okay, I was totally in not knowing and I was totally led by the field, still, when I am with horses, I don't have any weapon or shield anymore. There is really nothing. I really have to give over to the horses. I don't know what it is, but that's the effect what it has on me. It's my greatest challenge still, and I do this for 20 plus years. But for the horses, I lie awake. Because I cannot be something else than a beginner when I work with horses. That invitation is so pure and direct, I cannot escape. Even the horses are on the first spot in the order. The horses, the client, system of the client, and then me following the horses. Even if the client says, what is this? I trust on that horses, because there is the gate to that second skill, and to that we state, to that field where you fall together with your inner herd, where there is no duality anymore. I know they are masters there, and I'm just a student then, just a beginner. And it's not a horse as a horse, but it's what they represent. It's not that I see horses as miracle bringers or something. A horse is just a horse. He don't nothing about our stories, about granddad, about war, about hate. You just don't know about it. And that's so clean for me. That is such a beautiful energy. The way I see it is all those concepts are just temporary pointers to something which we cannot describe. Even this book, it's a temporary pointer to something we cannot describe. So when you read it and you're finished with it, throw it away and look again as a beginner. Stay a beginner. And but many people, they become the pointer. They become loyal to the pointer, to the concept. So they're gonna repeat that concept all the time. So the concept becomes a reality in itself. That's why Brett Hellinger, I think, had killed it at some times, just to stay open and look again.
Esse é o processo de evolução da humanidade mesmo. Okay.
This is the process, the evolution process of humanity.
Nós sempre estivemos e ainda estamos fazendo isso, né?
We've always been and we're still doing this, evoluting.
Assim espero.
Okay, that's what I hope.
Yeah. Yes, and
Okay.
It's when how do I say this? It's like words, like now we're talking, but those words point at something which we cannot describe. And you could say, I find that a beautiful way of saying of one of my teachers who said, words standing at their own grave, when they're spoken out and have pointed, they dissolve. Like pointers. Pointers just dissolve. They're standing at their own grave. They're servers of their own death. And I find that so beautiful. That is in one sentence, by the way. Now this comes up. This is in one sentence the essence of a facilitator. That you're there to stand at your own grave. You point to something and you're not needed anymore when the pointing is done. And I know this, what I say now, is maybe going 2 steps further than where we're supposed to be. But I take the risk to say this because for me, that's the invitation of the horses, that I forget myself totally. I dissolve. I'm just a pointer.
Acredito que nós chegamos num ponto alto e que seria muito bom nós finalizarmos aqui para não perdermos esse momento, isso que nós alcançamos.
I think we reached a very high level, and I think we can finish this conversation now, not to lose the place that we reached.
Yes, thank you. I agree with this.
Muito obrigada por essa primeira parte da nossa conversa. E agora nós vamos fazer uma pausa para, na sequência, abrirmos para as pessoas fazerem perguntas.
Ruud, thank you very much for this first part of our conversation. And now we will have a pause. And after that, we will open the possibility for people to ask questions.
Okay.
Obrigada.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.